friends, welcome back or welcome if you're new here. My name is Stacy and I am the Chapter Conundrum, and in today's video I want to talk about 25 books that I want to read in 2025. So this is definitely a trend the past few years at the end of the year on BookTube, and I enjoy watching people's TBRs, and I definitely have some plans for next year and some goals, and so I thought, what the heck, I might as well make this video too. So not everyone does this, but one thing I've done with my list is I've kind of broken it down by 5 chunks of 5s. So I have a few goals of things that I want to do with my reading, and I wanted to make my list kind of reflect those goals and make sure that I'm putting things on here that I'm quite likely to read. So my first kind of section here is 5-star predictions. So a while ago, I did a video of 5-star predictions, and I have read, I think, a couple of them now, but there are so many that I still have not yet gotten to, and I want to get to some of those in 2025. Does anyone else have this thing where they put off books they know they're gonna love? Because that seems to be me. But 2025, we're going to read at least 5 of them. And the first one that I chose for that is Blackstone Heart by Michael R. Fletcher. And from what I know, this is a dark fantasy, and our main character has amnesia, and he's slowly remembering pieces of things as he journeys on this quest that he's on to regain his memory. Pretty much everyone I know who's read this and who knows my reading taste has told me I'm going to enjoy it. And I definitely have loved the use of the amnesia trope before, and I definitely love dark fantasy. So this is definitely something I want to prioritize getting to in 2025 finally. Next up, I want to read The Folding Knife by KJ Parker. And I have only read The Hammer by him so far, but I enjoyed it, and I'm definitely curious to check out more of his work. From what I know of this, it follows a leader who has made some mistakes in the past, and that's something I have read once before in a series, which I can't tell you what it is because it's a spoiler for that series. But anyway, I really loved it there, and I do think I'm going to have a good time with it here as well. Obviously, it'll be very different tone-wise and character-wise because the writers are vastly different. But regardless, I think this is something I'm going to love, and I am curious to get to it. Next up is a sequel that I have been putting off for way too long, and I'm kind of waiting for the release date to be announced of the final book in the series at this point, because at this point I'm probably going to just do a binge reread. This is one of my all-time favorite series, guys, and that is going to be Dark Age, book 5 in the Red Rising series. This is definitely a 5-star prediction. I have pretty much loved all of the series so far, and yeah, I'm waiting for the announcement date of Red God. It's supposed to be 2025, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, this is one I want to get to finally. Number 4 on my list is another sequel of a very beloved series, and that is going to be An Echo in the Bone, book 7 in the Outlander series by Diana Gabaldon. And kind of the way that the series works, like the first 2 books are sort of their own plot arc, and then book 3, 4, and 5 are kind of like slower and a little bit more like meandering and character focused, and then book 6 things are kind of ratcheting up and getting set up again. So I think book 7 is going to be back to more of like an explosive plot, which is part of the reason I loved book 1 and 2 in the series so much. So I'm definitely excited to get to this one and catch up on the series, and I will probably have a fantastic time with it. So the 5th and final book on my 5-star predictions section of this list is Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. And I have yet to read any Carissa Broadbent, but I know this has a deadly competition and enemies to lovers romance, and that just sounds great, especially because I know a lot of people who have enjoyed her writing and both of her series. So I'm eager to jump into this one, and hopefully I love it too. So another one of my goals for next year is to end the year with less than 25 ongoing series. And so I've added 5 books to this list that are sequels, and these are all in series that I definitely have the potential to finish out or catch up on next year. So the first one of those is Wretched by Emily McIntyre, and this is the 3rd Never After book. It's a fantasy romance series of standalones, kind of, or at least the first 2 were completely separate from each other. And these are kind of like fractured fairy tales or like loose reimaginings or retellings. And I know that this one is supposed to be Wizard of Oz. This is a prime candidate for my list because I didn't love either book 1 or 2, but strangely enough, I had very different problems or complaints with them. And so I'm still kind of hopeful that if I give her another try, maybe she'll resolve like my issues with both of those first 2 books. And if she doesn't, and I still don't love this one, then it's an easy unhaul for me of the 5 books that I own in this series. So that would help me clear some shelf space for sure. And here's hoping I don't have the same complaints with that one. So next up is Jade War. If you guys saw my which series should I prioritize, you decide video, overwhelmingly in the comment section, you guys wanted me to reread Jade City and continue on and finish out Green Moon Saga. And I did my reread of Jade City. So I'm all set to pick up Jade War at the start of next year while things are still fresh in my brain. And I enjoyed Jade City a lot more the second time around. So I'm excited to continue with this series. So the next book I've chosen is Eidolon by Grace Draven, and this is the second book in the Wraith King series, and this is an indie fantasy romance. I have read and enjoyed the first book, Radiance, and this has been on my shelves for quite a while, and I still haven't gotten to it yet, so it's definitely high time I prioritize it and get to it. As far as I know, this series isn't completed, but I think there are like 3 or 4 books out now, so it shouldn't be overwhelmingly difficult for me to catch up on it. The fourth sequel I want to talk about here is Kingdoms of Death, and this is the 4th book in the Sun Eater series. This is one of those series for me that has just gotten better and better and better, and so I'm really excited to get back to it and catch up on it. I know there's been a lot of hype surrounding the 6th book that was just dropped this year, Disquiet Gods, so I'm definitely curious to catch up to everybody and see what all the fuss is about. And my 5th sequel on this list is going to be Black Veil, the 4th book in the Green Rider series by Kristen Britton. And I know that book 8, I don't know the title, but book 8 is going to be coming sometime in 2025. And that makes me want to catch up on the series, especially so that I can probably buddy read it with Fina, because that's her all-time favorite fantasy series. And you know she's going to be getting to it as soon as it drops. So it'll be a really fun time for both of us to read these and chat about them. I haven't decided yet whether I think I need to reread the first few in the series and do a binge. I'll probably wait and see what other people are doing and if we end up making it a read-along experience or not. I really loved both book 2 and 3 in this series, and so I'm really excited to get to book 4 and to continue on. And I'm pretty sure that Fina has said book 5 is her favorite in the series, so that makes me even more excited to continue on with the series. So another one of my goals for 2025 is to clear out some physical books off my shelves, especially the ones that are here on the shelves just for me, meaning that only I have interest in them and Jake doesn't. I'm not much of a rereader unless it's like an epic fantasy series where I enjoyed it and I know I want to go back and read it to catch on to more detail. So I have chosen some books that I don't think I'll end up rereading, even if I end up enjoying them. So these are things I think I will potentially unhaul or pass on to someone else after finishing, even if I love them. And the first of the 5 books I chose for that category is Hang the Moon by Jeanette Walls. And Jeanette Walls writes a lot of like memoir nonfiction type stuff, but she also has a historical fiction. I have read 2 out of her 4 books, and one I really loved, and it was The Glass Castle. It's the one about her own experience growing up and her immediate family. And the other one I read was her historical fiction. I think it's The Silver Star, but I didn't love that one as much, but I'm thinking maybe I didn't love it because it was fiction. This one is back to pulling from true events, and so I think I'll enjoy it a lot more, and I'm excited to check it out. The next book I chose for this category is Central Park by Guillaume Musso, and this is a thriller that Jake really enjoyed and wants me to read, and I really don't know a ton about it, but I kind of prefer to go into thrillers that way sometimes. So I am just going to go with it, and I'm eager to check it out. I'm trusting you, Jake, and if you let me down, I don't know how many more books you're going to be able to add to my TBR. So I'm telling you now. We'll see if Jake's right or not. Next up, I want to pick up and read The Cousins by Karen McManus. And this is a young adult thriller that takes up quite a bit of room since it's hardcover. But from what I know of this, it's a bunch of cousins that are invited to their estranged grandparents' like island where they have a resort, and it's something to do with inheritance. And I do know this has something to do with like the parents being estranged from the grandparents, and so I think the parents kind of view this as an opportunity for the next generation to sort of get in good with grandma in order to like kind of get them back into like the family inheritance or something. But yeah, anyway, this should be interesting. The next book I chose for this category is another thriller, but an adult one this time, and that is Last Girl Ghosted by Lisa Unger. And the premise of this, from what I know, is that these people met through an online dating thing. She's falling for him, and then he ghosts her, and she's just not having that, and it ends up turning into some kind of like cat and mouse type game or stalking or chase. I don't know. I'm gonna read and find out. The fifth book I chose for this category is a contemporary romance that I am excited to check out, and that would be Dungeons and Drama by Christy Boyce. And obviously from the title, you can tell this is going to be a nerdy romance. So from what I know of the premise of this, our female main character's dad owns a game store, and she, through some kind of circumstances, ends up working for him at the store and doesn't get along that well with one of her coworkers, but they somehow end up in a fake dating situation, and obviously it's going to be nerdy, so I'm looking forward to checking this one out, and hopefully I have a good time with it. So another one of my goals is to prioritize a few books on Everand before I cancel my service. And this was an audiobook and ebook online service that I have used for quite a while. But if you didn't know, they're changing their service model, and they're kind of going from being like more of an unlimited read what you want when you want kind of thing to more of like a credit system like Audible. But the way they're doing it is just very frustrating. You can look more into that if you want. I'm not going to go into it in this video. But essentially, this transition has kind of happened for the US subscription model. I'm still billed through my Canadian account, and so I haven't been forced to change subscription models yet. And I have a feeling it's going to eventually be coming to the Canadian side. So there are a few books that are on here that like aren't on my library that I don't own that I want to prioritize getting to before that happens and before I end up canceling my service. So the first one of those is Out on a Limb, and this is a contemporary romance featuring an accidental pregnancy, which I know is a trope that a lot of people don't enjoy that much, and I don't always enjoy it when I read it. But this one comes highly recommended by a few booktubers, including Steph, who I discovered this year. If you guys haven't checked out her channel yet, you're sleeping. Go check her out. She's fantastic. But anyway, she really enjoyed this book, and the way she talks about it makes me want to pick it up and try it out. So that is one I'm going to be prioritizing. So another author that my library doesn't really have a ton of is Christina Lauren, and I have yet to read some of their newer books. So what I'm going to put on here is The True Love Experiment. I don't know a ton about this, and I kind of want to keep it that way. I have read and enjoyed several of their contemporary romance books, and I'm pretty confident that this one will be a fun time as well. Next up is a romantasy that everyone is probably going to be shocked that I haven't yet picked up, and that is Fourth Wing. I'm not sure if I'm going to love this or if I'm going to hate it, but there's only one way to find out, and I might as well prioritize getting to it before I have to pay a boatload for it, especially because I know there's going to be a ton of hype surrounding the series when Onyx Storm drops. For my fourth pick in this category, I'm going to talk about an author that I have read and enjoyed a couple books from already, and that is S.A. Cosby. And I do own this one physically. It's Blacktop Wasteland, but I do really love the audiobooks for his books, and Everand happens to have the audio for this. So this is one I definitely want to prioritize reading on Everand before I cancel my service. And also kind of a fun thing about this book, S.A. Cosby is a fairly local author to my area in Virginia now. And this is set in a city about an hour away from us where Jake's grandpa actually lived. So I've heard that there's a lot of like fun Easter eggs in here for some local things that I'll probably catch on to. And I know I'm going to love the story because it's S.A. Cosby. So I'm definitely looking forward to this one. So my last goal that I want to touch on with 5 more books in this video is to read 5 of my 2025 anticipated releases. I did not do so well reading my 2024 anticipated releases, and I'm behind on several of them. So I definitely want to make sure that when some of the books I'm interested in next year drop, that I'm actually picking them up and reading them next year. So I've chosen 5 here that I think it's very realistic for me to get to next year. And the first one of those is You Killed Me First by John Marrs. If you guys don't know, I have read a couple of John Marrs thrillers, and one of them is one of my all-time favorites, The Passengers. And so I'm very eager to check out his new one. So John Marrs kind of has this thing where some of his books are interwoven with each other, that they're all set in the same universe, and you have to read them in publication order to avoid spoilers for the previous ones. From what I can tell of early reviews of this does not fall into that universe. This is one of his regular psychological thrillers, and so you don't have to have read any of his other books in order to jump into this one. So I'm eager to check it out when it drops in March, and I hope I have a great time with it. The next book on this section of my list is Sunrise on the Reaping, and this is the new installment in the Hunger Games series. I didn't really love The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I have to be honest, but this is the story of Haymitch's games, from what I know. And so I think this one will be much more interesting for me, especially since I did a reread of the original trilogy this past summer, and I kind of caught on to a few more snippets that were told about Haymitch in the original trilogy and his games. So I think I'm going to have a really good time with this, and I'm definitely curious to get some answers on a few things. Next up is Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney, and this is a thriller that drops, I think, mid-January, but we're reading it in February with our Thrill, Chill, or Kill book club. And I don't really know much about the premise of this, and I'm okay not knowing much about the premise of this. I have read several Alice Feeney books now and enjoyed all of them, some more than others, so I'm definitely curious to give this one a go in February, and hopefully I love it. Another release I'm really looking forward to next year is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I have read all of her books, including her novella, and I have pretty much liked to loved all except for one of those. So I'm pretty confident that I'm going to have a good time with this one. And from what I know, it follows a female scientist that applies to the first all-female program through NASA. So it'll be fun to see how that all shakes out. And then the last anticipated release for next year, surprising absolutely no one who knows my reading tastes, is going to be With a Vengeance by Riley Sager. And guys, he is one of my all-time favorite thriller authors. I haven't read a book from him that I haven't enjoyed yet, but I will say his most two recent ones are not my favorites of his. So I'm not really sure if it'll end up being a 5-star prediction for me, but I am confident that I will at least enjoy it, and I'm eager to check it out when it drops. So that was it for 25 books I want to read next year in 2025. Let me know down below in the comments if you are also planning to read any of these in 2025. If you've already read any of them, let me know your thoughts on them. Also, definitely chat to me about what your anticipated releases are for next year, what your reading goals are for next year, any of that good stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe on your way out if you want to, and have a great day. Bye!